to know the biggest mistakes I made as a new entrepreneur so that you could potentially avoid them?
Truck tire. I can't stop! Help!
Today, I'm going to be sharing with you my biggest fails my first years in business and what I would have done differently had I known then what I know now. If you're new to the channel, make sure that you subscribe and hit the bell notification so you can get notified every time we release new content. Hi, I'm Amy Walker, Client Acquisition Specialist. My job is to help you find the simplest path to acquiring new clients. Before I bare my soul and tell you all of my biggest mistakes, I want to hear yours too. What's the biggest flop that you did as an early entrepreneur? Because, there's we should have each other's backs, right? We should all be in this together. It's kind of like the "We're all in this together" song,
We're all in this together. Once we know that we're all stars, and we see that.
I made mistakes and I wish somebody would have said "Oh yeah, I made that too. Don't do that thing." So that's what today's video is all about. As new entrepreneurs, we are so excited. You wake up in the morning and your business is the first thing on your mind and it propels you out of bed, and you lay in bed at night and you're just dreaming about all the things that will happen. It's this place of passion. And if you think about relationships, when passion is really high, logic is not quite so much. And so sometimes we jump in with all the enthusiasm in the world, but we don't have a plan, and so we just make mistakes. Not because we're dumb, not because we're screw-ups, just because we're new and we're learning. And it's, I think, really important to have a tribe of entrepreneurs who have been there, done that can help guide you through and navigate some of those early mistakes. If I'm being totally transparent, some of the biggest mistakes that I made early on in business were actually mindset mistakes. And so I'm gonna share some of those with you, and then I'll also share some of the actual business examples. The first mistake I made was actually pursuing success as though it was everything. I was all about the results, I was all about the goals, I was all about the work, and I just kept working harder and harder and setting more and more goals. And after a couple of years, I remember looking around at my business and thinking, why am I not in love with this anymore? I used to love this, and yet here I am, and I'm making more, I'm working more, but I'm not feeling more, if that makes sense. So the lesson that I would go back and I would teach my new entrepreneur self is that your value is not your results. The other thing that will happen, I mean, I'm not trying to jinx you, but it's pretty common if you talk to any successful entrepreneur. They had bad quarters, they had bad years, they had points where they were like, uh-oh, are we gonna make it? And they figured out how to pull out. And when you're in the valley, if you have tied your value to your results, then you feel like the world's biggest failure and you doubt yourself, you have a lot of shame, you have a lot of guilt. Instead of just looking at it and saying, this is a challenging time in business and we're gonna get through, it's there's something wrong with me. So I recommend that from the very beginning, you create a clear distinction. Your value is infinite. You're a member of the human family. You have divine potential. You are great. And then you have results. And sometimes results are not good. Sometimes they're average. Sometimes they're amazing. No matter where the results are, your value did not go up or down with them. The second mistake I made was trying to do all the things by myself, or with very little help. I had this idea that if I could do it, that meant I should do it. And the only things that I delegated or hired out were things that I absolutely could not do. But here's why this is a problem. I really tapped out my growth around $500,000 in sales a year. I could not seem to grow beyond that. And it was because I was doing too many things. There were simply too many things that were flowing through me, and I became the bottleneck in my business. So the lesson I learned was just because you can do it does not mean you should do it. As a very new entrepreneur, I remember looking at successful people in awe. They somehow just had the magical aura that shined down on them and gave them all the success in the world. And I would look at them and I'd be like, oh, that person's so smart, or that person is just so beautiful, or that person is so charismatic. And I felt like in order to be successful, you had to have the it factor. What I have learned by working with hundreds and thousands of small business owners and entrepreneurs is that there can be very uncharismatic people who are very successful. There can be very unattractive people who are very successful. And every once in a while you meet someone and you're like, wow, how are you successful? Because you're not really that smart. And then you feel guilty because you thought bad thoughts about them, but you know what happens. But here's the deal. It's not magical. We say that at the beginning of every single video that we record. Business is not magical, it's formulaic. And when I really understood that it wasn't me that was lacking, it was my formula that was lacking, I was able to plug in those pieces that I was missing, and all of a sudden, business worked, and I became the person that looked successful and like I had it all together, when in reality, I still don't. None of us do. In my early years as an entrepreneur, I had a hard time figuring out the balance between the customer, giving the customer what they needed, but making sure that my business was also protected. And so in certain situations, I would give the customer everything that they wanted, and it would be detrimental to my business. And in other cases, it was like, no, this is what we agreed to. You signed the contract, and we are sticking to it, even though it wasn't making the customer happy. And what I learned from that is, you know what? The customer is not always right, but neither are you. And that's just plain truth. Nobody's gonna be right all the time. And so whenever we're not on the same page, instead of saying, I'm right, you're wrong, or you're right, we're wrong, what I do is I look at it and I say, okay, here's the situation, and let's make it better. And so I'll think about it from the client's perspective and from my perspective. Also, little tip, I never respond to those things right away. I'll send an email and I'll say, I've received all of your information. I'm going to think about it tonight and come up with some good ideas and options for you, and then I'll reach out to you tomorrow. I'm always too emotional when someone's not happy or they're mad at me or something. I'm always too emotional to think analytically in the moment. And so I give myself a minute, give myself a pep talk, and then I go and I think through, what could we do? How could we make this a win for the customer? How could we make it a win for us? And I'll come up with 3 options, present it to the customer tells me what they prefer, and then we move forward from there. And in the vast majority of cases, I am able to keep the customer happy and also protect my business. So it's not one or the other, it's both. We gotta have both. Now, some of you might not know this, but I actually started my first independent contractor position when I was 19 years old. I started my first direct sales business when I was 22 years old. So I really have been an entrepreneur kind of since I was a teenager. And Amy Walker Consulting is actually the 7th business that I launched. And all of them made money, but some of them made not a lot of money. And so in my early years as an entrepreneur, I kind of jumped ship when things got hard. I would do something and they would go, oh, this isn't working for me. And then I would try something else. And then I would go, oh, this isn't working for me. And I would try something else. So what I learned during that time is your challenges, whatever those roadblocks are, they follow you. It doesn't really matter if you're doing this business or that business, you will have the same challenges that all entrepreneurs have. There is no journey free of challenge or conflict or growth. And it's good. It really is good for you to have that growth. But what I learned along the way was that I needed to stay the course. I needed to stick with one thing long enough to figure out how to make it work. And then I could decide if I wanted something else. And I've done that. I've pursued a course and then said, great, conquered it, climbed the mountain, and now I want that mountain because I didn't even see it before when I was on this path, but now I see it, I want that more. That's okay, but just make sure that you're actually pursuing something enough to be able to get there. Now, stay the course, but also make frequent course corrections, because I have also had seasons of business where I'm like, oh no, I'm going for it. We are just gonna make this happen no matter what, and I'm like all in focused, and I hit a wall and I'm like, busting through it. Ow, my fingers are bleeding and my head hurts, but we're just gonna keep going. That is the hardest way to do business. You've gotta be willing to look at where you wanna go and then make little course corrections all along the way in order to get you there successfully and without killing yourself in the process. If you are liking this content, please hit the like button and let me know. And if you're looking for more tactile support in your business, helping you to expand your sales, expand your marketing, I would love to offer you our free Sales and Marketing GPS. It's a really powerful tool that will give you an 8-page improvement plan on how to get your sales and marketing on track, and I cannot wait for you to have it. If you are new to this channel, please subscribe. We would love to have you back. We spend a lot of time and energy creating content just for you so that you have the resources you need to grow your business. We also have a thriving community of entrepreneurs that we would love for you to join. So head on over to our private Facebook group, Acquire. We can't wait to see you there.